Hello and welcome back.
Welcome.
This time I'm the clueless one, and Andreas is going to tell me all about MQTT.
Today we continue our series about MQTT. And what we want to do today is, after we received and sent messages last time, today we want to process them in our service. So instead of just receiving them in one method and doing all the magic in one big method, we want to split up things and have a good code structure. So that's what it's gonna be. So let's process some messages.
Sounds interesting.
So let's start processing some messages. What I prepared, we have an incoming topic or an incoming connector. We call it weather. And we subscribe to a constant switch weather. And the broker, again, we use this public broker I showed you last time, where we have here, we publish to this topic, a constant switch weather. Here on the left, we subscribe to everything under weather for now. So what we can do here, we can send some messages. And we get the temperature on the left. Okay, so that's that. And now we receive these messages here. And we consume them. We first get a byte array and we parse it with the object mapper to a JSON. So if we start the service, yeah, I think it should actually be in the middle. So again, this here doesn't mean it's successfully connected. This means it successfully reached the MQTT server. And now it's actually really connected.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we need to do now is go to our broker. We send some message. And here we get some logs. So we receive the raw data, which is the string here. And then we receive we print the parsed weather data DTO. It contains the temperature and humidity.
Nice.
So now we want to do something with this data. And what we can do is we can expose this weather object from this method. So we can return it here. So, but how do we get to this data? Where does it go to? We can just say, okay, let's define another outgoing topic. Let's say this is the weather raw stuff, okay? Now we have to rename here in the application properties, the connector. And now let's name the results of this method we put to the weather connector. However, we don't define an outgoing connector here in the application properties.
Okay.
So if we would start this now, it would complain, hey, you defined a connector, but you don't configure where this thing should go to. But what you can do is we can do another method. Use weather, where we now consume the weather data. And let's just print it again. And here we also add now the incoming and call it weather. So what Quarkus is doing, you say it's outgoing, here you consume it, so it connects these two internally without going to the MQTT queue, because we didn't configure that this topic is going to the MQTT queue. So again, we can go here, send a message, and it wasn't connected. Normal business. Now we are actually connected.
Outcome. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, let's change the temperature. We publish it, And here we received the raw weather data. We passed the weather data. And then we were using the weather data. So this is pretty nice because it helps you structure your code. So you can split it up. For example, here we receive and pass the raw weather data, and then we use it to calculate something. We can even go a bit further and move this to another file. So let's implement something that we can do with the data, how we can process it. For example, we could calculate the heat index. If you know the heat index, well, the heat index defines how the temperature feels like based on the humidity and the temperature. And there's this really nice table that you can use, or this super simple formula here, up here. And luckily for us, this is all an image. And so it's pretty easy to copy paste these values. So I prepared this a bit without guarantees. This is my calculate heat index. So no guarantees these values are correct, but I triple checked them. So there's a chance at least. So here we have the weather data incoming, and we calculate the heat index. And now what we can do again is be like outgoing. Hey, this is the heat index. And now we just send a double as a result. It's no longer connected to the rest, but yeah. And again, we can then just be like, hey, and now we want to incoming consume the heat index and log the heat index again. Heat index is a double, and we log it. Index is heat index. So what happens? We receive the weather data, we parse it, and then we use it here. We get the object in here, we calculate the heat index, and then publish it again to the next connector, which is called heat index, and that one we consume again here.
So why wouldn't you just call the functions?
Because this is all happening in a reactive way. Quarkus is calling this function when the queue has a new message, when it gets a new message from the queue.
Okay.
Quarkus can call this in parallel. If you allow it, it can call it. So normally this runs on the event loop, so you shouldn't do blocking stuff here. But you can also say something like add blocking. Then it would run on a worker thread. And what it actually handles for you, Quarkus, is handling back pressure and also acknowledgements. So in the way we do it here, we don't inject the message, but we get just the data. Then it automatically acknowledges the message when the method finishes to the queue. It sends an acknowledgement. And if you would not acknowledge, then you would get the message again. So this is all handled in this way. And yeah, this is why you chain these methods like this.
Okay.
I think I started it already. So let's go here, send another value, and check what the log says. Did I? Yeah. Oh, I did not restart it. Or I changed something again, so let's wait for the connection.
This stupid camera.
You're not sharp today.
No.
Maybe I forgot to change the...
Hot, but not sharp.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, I guess I forgot to change that setting. It always resets. So what we can see here now is we received the raw weather data, we passed it to a weather data object, and then we print the heat index in the end. And it says it would be like this temperature. But there's a disclaimer to make. The heat index only works above 27 degrees with that formula. So let's use something reasonable. 30. And we see, yeah, with 40% humidity, there's not a real, it's even a decrease a slight. And if we go for like 80% humidity, then we have now 38 or almost 39 degrees Celsius of felt temperature. And
So what's the lower limit for temperature?
27 degrees.
Okay.
At least with this formula here, it's somewhere here. Yeah. Equal or greater to 27 degrees Celsius. And there's another formula, but I didn't want to copy paste too.
Okay, all good.
So now we can even structure our code a bit better because we can move this to another file. We can move this to our heat index processor. We also just make this a bean. We can have the calculate heat index here. And maybe we even want another one for the heat index logger. And we put this one here. And then we need a logger. That was the wrong one. Heat index logger for that name. Okay. So now here in our MQTT raw weather receiver, we only receive the raw weather and we publish the weather object to the weather topic. And in our heat index processor, we consume this weather and we create the heat index value. And then in the heat index logger, we log this.
Okay.
And this should still work the same. Not connected yet. Okay. So let's try again. We send this value. We receive the raw weather data and pass it. And then here from the heat index logger, we log the heat index.
Okay.
So this really allows you to structure your code into and separate the concerns. So first we get some weather data and then we process it and then we do something else with it.
Nice.
Yeah.
How do you keep track of the different parts that this will all actually use this stream?
The weather stream here.
Yeah.
For a lot of things, IntelliJ offers you a button here to jump there.
Okay.
But what you can do is, yeah, search like that, and you find the incoming and outgoing.
Okay. But you don't mark it somewhere in the class's name or something, and you don't get any help that this will be all the weather stream related, right?
No.
Okay.
So if you mark it in your class's name, depends on your coding convention in your project. At the moment, I called it processor because it's processing this one, and this here is a receiver because it actually receives data. So you see, I have some naming scheme there, but it's not like enforced or something.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're flexible there. Yeah. Like always, you should think of some scheme that, in best case, it just the name speaks and tells you what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's already the first part.
Nice.
So let's recap. How can we process messages in our Quarkus service? So what we had before, we have an incoming topic where we receive some messages actually from the MQTT queue. Now we receive it here. We somehow process it. This is also basically nothing else than a processing method. It receives some stuff and it returns something else. So in here, the processing is parsing this object. And then we, again, publish it inside Quarkus as the weather connector. This connector we can then, again, with at incoming, consume in the next class or the next bean. And here we do nothing else. We use this data to calculate something new and also publish here the heat index to the heat index connector. And again, that one we can then use somewhere else. And in our case, we just log what we calculated.